Obviously, Mr. Trump represents a certain amount of unpredictability.
Since 2015 and the election of Justin Trudeau, Canada's GDP and employment rates have hit some of the lowest levels in over 20 years. The country is facing a housing crisis unlike anything before, and food inflation has crippled Canadian households in every single province. The truth is, Canadians are witnessing the predictable failure of Canada under the predictably catastrophic leadership of the Liberal Party and Justin Trudeau. Before they elected him, Canadians were given fair warning about Justin Trudeau's policies and about what the country might look like under his leadership. He famously said, "The budget will balance itself," and that terrorists should be allowed to keep their citizenship. He even once said that he admires China's dictatorship. These were all things he said before Canadians went to the polls to cast their votes. After being elected, Canada has racked up historic levels of national debt. Unlike anything we or our grandparents have seen in our lifetimes, he froze the bank accounts of protesters and unjustly invoked the Emergencies Act to deal with them, all before he imposed steep carbon taxes on families who were struggling. To this day, even as food inflation and energy costs soar, his government continues to incrementally increase that carbon tax every year. Since 2021, Canada's housing crisis has caused two more crises: an opioid epidemic and a homelessness epidemic. Even refugees and immigrants have found themselves sleeping on the streets of major Canadian cities, while people's sons and daughters overdose with fentanyl and heroin. After all of this, no Canadian could say that they weren't warned. With poverty and homelessness comes drug epidemics, suicides, and increased crime. All of this was hoisted upon us by Justin Trudeau and the massive deficits Stephen Harper had warned us about. At the end of the day, we were warned.
And Trudeau's deficits will not be small. Mr. Trudeau has made tens of billions of dollars of spending promises. He said the budget will balance itself. He has no idea what he is talking about when it comes to these things. That's why you could be sure that his small deficits will become large deficits and would get Canada into the same pickle of high taxes and program cuts that we had under the last Liberal government.
Any educated economist will tell you that endless spending and the injection of free money into the economy will lead to inflation, which in turn leads to higher levels of poverty. Just ask the Canadians who are now struggling to pay their rent and mortgages. No one could have predicted what happened in 2020, but we could have predicted how a Liberal government led by corrupt cronies and imbeciles would have reacted. They reacted exactly as we would have expected. They engaged in aggressive authoritarianism driven by misguided science. Then they printed endless amounts of money while shutting down the country's economy. As Donald Trump closed the borders to tourism and travel from China, Liberals in our own country accused him of racism and discrimination. Months later, they would do the same thing and pat themselves on the back. But by then it was too late. We all know how 2020 and the subsequent years unfolded, and we all know how badly it was handled and how we are still reeling from the consequences today. We all know and see that Trudeau's Liberal government is choosing to double down on their bad policies rather than repair and restore the economic prosperity and potential we once had. We all can see Justin Trudeau's Rolex-wearing partner in the NDP regretting his decision to prop up the Liberals and dreading the outcome of the next election. Both parties know exactly what's coming their way. The next election will be an opportunity for Canadians to repair the mistakes of the past few years and set their country on a new course toward economic growth, reason, and logical decision-making. The next election will be an opportunity to rewind and reverse the very predictable failure of Justin Trudeau's leadership.